This video is going to be a mock draft for the Baltimore Ravens where I'll go through rounds 1 through 4 and project where I think the Ravens' needs are based upon the roster configuration right now, number one, the quite obvious needs that we have at certain positions to build depth and or try to find some starters, but also my near complete analysis of the NFL draft. Originally, I wanted to have 100 players evaled with film for people to check out um, about a week before the draft. So that will be this Thursday. And if you're not sure what I'm referencing, I'm talking about a document that looks like this. People that are in my Discord/Patreon already have access to it, whereby you can click on players, see an evaluation. Anyone that's blue there with a hyperlink is available with an evaluation and or film that you could click on and watch yourself with the player spot shadowed, so you could make some conclusions on your own that may or may not line up with what I have provided. So in any case, this mock draft I would say is probably the closest that I can get to what I think the Ravens are going to do based upon the players that are projected to be there. Number one, and our needs on the roster from a depth standpoint and overall. So we'll get this thing started with pick 27. And surprisingly, Tyler Booker was gone. Will Johnson had just gone off the board. Shamar Stewart taken by the Rams one pick prior. And as much as I want to fortify, improve the offensive line, it's been the focus for me to talk about in our Discord and Patreon and in a lot of videos that I've done in the offseason. To have Mike Green here, to actually pass over him, to think about passing over him as the best talent on the board remaining, I think extremely highly of Josh Simmons. Matthew Golden as well, the Ravens needs at wide receiver, are not nearly as severe as they have been in previous seasons. The best two offensive linemen, I guess, besides Josh Simmons, but from an interior guard spot or option, Gray Zabel and Donovan Jackson. I like both of those guys. For me, it's very difficult to click the button and not choose Mike Green. I don't think I think that the Ravens have this choice. It's quite obvious that there'll be some NFC teams that want to move up and try to select Mike Green. Because if you're a team after the Detroit Lions and you want to select a pass rusher, an edge defender, outside linebacker like Mike Green, you got to be in front of the Lions. Unless you're content with Donovan Ezeraku, who is available here as well. I don't have him shown on the screen. This is just kind of a global availability. Emanuari, the safety from South Carolina, is available. Simmons, a guy who has some medical issues apparently in terms of his records, but a smooth, very versatile offensive tackle. The Ravens don't need a tackle at this point. They need interior offensive line help. In this scenario here, I found it impossible to move past Mike Green. And what it means for me is there's got to be some options in terms of whether the Ravens move on from other guys at outside linebacker, edge defender, and or try to recoup future picks in doing so. Mike Green's just too much, at least when I conducted this mock draft today, just too much for me to pass up in this scenario. And, I can't blame anybody else for having the same thoughts. So what it does is it really pushes that offensive line need or concern down the road a little bit, kicks the can, if you will. When I got to pick 59, I had done this draft for three teams, the Ravens, Lions, and the Seahawks. So I took some notes, and you may hear me flipping through some pages. Let me slow that down a little bit. You may hear me flipping through some pages as I go through some of my notes. So Landon Jackson is here at pick 59. I wouldn't have guessed that. I thought that I feel like he's a guy that's probably off the board by pick 50. For me here, this really came down to Xavier Watts, the safety from Notre Dame, Alfred Collins, the D tackle from Texas, a couple other guys I have to mention that I really like at corner. Darian Porter is still there from Iowa State. Super athletic, great ball skills, small sample size in terms of how often teams actually targeted him. I did a show with Ken from Film Study Ravens a couple of nights ago over the weekend. And if I understood what he said correctly, and it sounds accurate, that there were only 17 times Porter was targeted in 2024, and he had 3 interceptions and only 5 completions allowed. Really remarkable. I may have those numbers wrong. Feel free to correct me in the comment section. Safeties that are here, and I thought about kind of pushing down the road a little bit the need for safety, meaning go offensive line here And then you got Makuba and Winston from Penn State. Those guys probably be available a little longer than an Xavier Watts, who you can see is still on the board. One of the guys I really like here from an offensive line standpoint is Marcus Mbow or Marcus Bell from Purdue. He's played guard, he's played tackle, just very smooth and smart. To me, he just looks like a Macari 2.5, if you will. More athletic, faster, in my opinion. Perhaps about the same size or build. So I recognize that some may have concerns about that. This illustrates, if you ask me, the need possibly to take offensive line at 27. Meaning, if you don't go offensive line there, now you're trying to address needs, safety, defensive tackle, corner, and we have depth at outside linebacker already. So as I did this mock today, I'll be honest with you, it was kind of confirmed for me that as much as I really like Mike Green, and I think he's an elite pass rusher, guy who could probably generate 8-10 sacks in his rookie year, it looks pretty clear to me that the Ravens are probably going to go offensive line in the first round. But in the case of this mock draft here, and some of you will like it and some of you will not, I went Xavier Watts at pick 59 because I like the ball skills, the versatility, the awareness. Is there some athletic limitations? Meaning, is he an absolutely elite athlete? No, I don't think so. Not as an NFL defensive back. Compared to me and you and 99.9% of the population, yes. But compared to the guys that he'll be covering, I do have some concerns, particularly about covering smaller slot receivers on change of direction routes. But in any case, to get Green and then Xavier Watts on the defensive side of the ball, I thought was great through round 2. As we got to pick 91 here, I forced my own hand, clearly, by not addressing offensive line at 27 or 59. So I'm not going to be able to pass anybody up here. That you can see the quality of what's available is probably gone. The choices at guard, center, and then tackle. You're looking at tackles who could move to guard. And I am going to take Millam here, the tackle who could go and play guard for you if need be, but also a guy who could serve as a backup for Rosengarten and Ronnie Stanley should either one of those guys get injured. And again, I think I can't argue with people who say, well, you got to take Mike Green at 27. First, I don't think he should be there. He shouldn't be there. Will he be there? I still don't think he will, no. But the quality of guys that you're selecting at offensive line, I feel like you're lucky to get a Millam here at this position. The guard group is not nearly as impressive, if you ask me. Certainly not day one starter type guys, even though I think Dylan Fairchild is underrated and a very tough interior guard. So I had no choice here. I've forced my hand, like I said. You're welcome to let me know if you've seen other people do it this way and gain something of a more higher quality instant player, instant starter at guard or any offensive line for that matter than Millam or even a Trapillo from Boston College. The position that I've obviously pushed down the road even further, defensive tackle. I've really missed the boat on some of the higher level guys, defensive tackle, and you'll see some global players available flow through here, but also just defensive tackles. By going outside linebacker in the first round and not offensive line, I feel like I've continually been behind in each one of these selections. And look, we've got a pretty good group of players on the board so far for the Ravens: Green, Watts, and Millam. We've missed on a number of really high-level defensive linemen, and for me here, it comes down to either Phillips from Maryland or Caldwell from Oregon. And Phillips, first of all, super athletic and incredibly strong wrestling background. The Brandon Williams comparison, I can see it. I think he's a little more athletic side to side than Williams was, and as a penetrating defensive tackle, nose, 3 technique, whatever position you want to use him as on the interior, I think he's capable. Doesn't, to me, bring as much of a pass rush option, at least through these first 4 picks, even though personally I'm not even satisfied with my own group of selections here. We've got help in that Stanley was re-signed or returned. Awuzie at outside corner. We didn't have to draft a corner here because we've got quality guys there between Wiggins, Awuzie, and then Marlon Humphrey. Tampa and some of those other guys, we don't know what they'll be able to give us. The point is we've drafted the positions of need and at least improved the roster significantly. The position that we've left out in the cold, clearly interior offensive line, even though Millam, at least in this projection or my discussion here for this video, is a guy who, quote, could play interior. I was impressed that Fairchild and Slater were still here at 136. It seems about right to me for them to be in this position. We don't need any of those. We don't have any of those global needs. It is notable, I think, that Jared Ivey is still on the board, and some of the corners who are there. I have to mention Kobe Bryant, Zy Alexander, Noel Williams, who Ken kind of um, brought to my attention as a guy who had really great metrics and coverage stats over the course of 2024. He's from Cal. I didn't think that the film necessarily showed as a high level guy like a round one, round two type of player, but in round four, round five, I feel like Noel Williams will be a great choice as a corner. He's not the guy that I'm going to go with here. Fairchild and Slater was the two that for me stood out as guys who, in a pinch in 2025, could at least give us competent offensive line play. I wouldn't have any problem if someone wanted to take one of those three corners if we hadn't solidified the interior offensive line. If we hadn't gone with Green in the first round and neglected outside linebacker to this point, or edge pass rusher, then Jared Ivey would be a great selection. But and this goes to my point a little bit about last year drafting Adisa Isaac. How would you compare Ivey and Adisa Isaac? I'm not sure that there's a huge difference between them if you look at some of the college film. And so for me to have gone through this draft and gotten Green in the first round, tremendous talent. Probably we need to move on from some other edge rusher to make space for him. If you draft a Mike Green, you play him. You need him to play 40, 45 snaps a game, if not more. And so whether it's Van Noy, whether it's Owe, Ojabo, I certainly wouldn't want to move on from Atavius Robinson, not with the way he defended against the run last year. Really, in my heart of hearts, don't want to get rid of Van Noy or Owe either, but to make room for Mike Green and give him an opportunity to impact the game. Like I said earlier, based upon my evaluation, which at this point I've watched 4 games of his, one of which was Ohio State. I think he's an 8 to 10 sack guy as a rookie if he gets significant opportunity. You don't draft a Mike Green and not give him the chance to impact the game because he's shown the skills to do so. I think he's got a very refined set of pass rush moves. If you put him in known pass rush situations, I think he can win some matchups against any offensive tackle that's out there in the world, not just college football, but the NFL. He's a supreme talent, in my opinion. And in this case, even though I think for me, and I have expressed it multiple times, my focus for the Ravens in the offseason is offensive line. I couldn't pass up on Mike Green when it came time for me to click the button and actually not choose him. I didn't get any trade back offers. If this happens in real life and next week Mike Green is there for the Ravens at 27, I think the phone will be ringing off the hook, probably from multiple NFC teams that are behind the Ravens. I wouldn't anticipate teams like the Chiefs or the Bills trying to even call us because the Bills, have pass rush that they trust in multiple guys, number one. Number two, I wouldn't think that they would even entertain the possibility that Eric DeCosta would trade with them. However, teams like the Eagles or maybe even Washington sitting behind us, I think 2 picks or 3, might get on the phone. And even, in fact, the Detroit Lions. It wouldn't surprise me. It's just the Lions are sitting on less draft capital, and their draft is going to be more straightforward 1, 2, 3, 4, at least going through the first 4 rounds. In any case, this was the final haul that I was able to grab I guess this is my 5th mock draft for the Ravens. As I went through it, probably by the time I clicked the button to make my round 2 selection of Xavier Watts, someone who I really do like and enjoy watching the film of, number one, I realized that I think that the board just flows better if the Ravens go offensive line at 27 in this draft. I don't think it's the same every year, every season, but this one, at least for me, now being the 5th time that I've gone through and done one completely for the Ravens, it seems like offensive line sets the board up for the Ravens to still take quality players thereafter and address positions of need and or depth, but the offensive line fall off to me seems more significant. You're welcome to let me know what you think of A, the players I chose, and B, kind of my summary thoughts that I offered there, and what strategy you think the Ravens should go with first as a leadoff hitter in round 1 next Thursday night. Appreciate you guys' time.